novel by A.J. Cronin. Okay, it was published in 1937. Yeah, it was published in 1937. Now, Citadel is a book that has all the ethics of medical practitioners. Okay, this novel has all the ethics, the moral values that medical practitioners has to follow. Okay, so whenever someone becomes a doctor or whenever someone goes into into the health industry, yes, Sanket. Yes, Sanket, you want to ask something?
Sorry, ma'am, by mistake. By
It's okay.
mistake.
It's okay. It's okay. So, whenever someone becomes a doctor or whenever someone goes into the health industry, they do read this novel. Okay, because it has all the ethics that a medical practitioner has to follow. Okay, so that is about Citadel. Now, Birth is an excerpt. It is a portion that is been taken from the novel. Now, what is the chapter about? So, the chapter is about a Dr. Andrew Manson. Okay, it is about Andrew Manson. Now, who is Andrew Manson? Andrew Manson is a doctor, okay, and he has just become a doctor. Okay, he is a fresher basically. He has just become a doctor, and currently he is an assistant to Dr. Edward Page. Okay, right now he's just an assistant, but he is a doctor and he is a fresher. He has just become a doctor. Now, Andrew comes home one night and he is very exhausted. Okay, he comes home at around 12 midnight. Okay, and he's very, very exhausted. Now, why is he exhausted? First of all, he has come from his work day. Second of all, in the evening, he had a fight with his girlfriend, Christine. Okay, he had a fight or a disagreement with his girlfriend. Okay, so now that is why he is very upset when he comes home. Okay, he's exhausted, he's upset, he's tired. So he comes home at around midnight and he sees that just in front of his house, just in front of his apartment, Joe Morgan is waiting for him. Okay, Joe Morgan is waiting for him. Now, who is Joe Morgan? Joe Morgan is a person who is expecting a baby. Joe Morgan and his wife, they are expecting a baby. Okay. After 20 years of marriage, they are expecting a baby and they are very excited about it. Okay. So right now, Joe's wife, Susan is at home and she is going to deliver the baby. Now, as I said that this novel was published in 1937. So we are talking about like a very old time. Okay. Back then, what used to happen that there were not so many hospitals. Okay. And right now in today's time also in villages and everything, there are no hospitals as such. There are not so many hospitals. So how do women give birth? So have you heard of a midwife? Can anyone tell me who is a midwife?
I'm the one who actually deliver the baby.
Yes, a midwife is someone who helps the woman deliver the baby. Okay, she is very experienced, although she is not a doctor. Okay, but she is very experienced woman. Okay, and she helps the woman to give the birth to a baby. Or in Hindi also, you must have heard the word daima, right? So this is what a midwife does. Okay. So now Susan is at home with a midwife. Okay. Susan Morgan is at home with a midwife. But the case is such complicated that Joe decides, okay, now we need a doctor. Now the midwife won't be of that much help. We need a proper doctor. Okay. So Joe goes to Andrew. Okay, Joe goes to Andrew and Joe says that doctor, please come to my house and my wife needs you. Please come. Okay. Now Andrew, who is very exhausted and who is completely occupied with his own thoughts, completely occupied with the fight just he just had. Okay, he's completely occupied. But as a duty of a doctor, he says, okay, I'll go and I'll make sure nothing mad happens. Okay. Andrew says to Joe that, okay, just be calm. I'm there. I'll make sure nothing happens to the baby or the mother. Okay. So Andrew finally reaches to Joe's house. Okay. So far, so clear. So far, it's clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So Andrew goes to Joe's house. Okay. So when he goes to Joe's house, he sees Susan and he realizes that, okay, this is a complicated case and this case requires all my attention. Okay. So the entire process of delivery and everything happens. Now, when the birth of the baby
Collocation.
happens, when the birth of a baby happens, Andrew realizes that it is a stillborn. Who is a stillborn baby?
It's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. Okay, the baby is born dead. He's lifeless. Okay, so now it's a stillborn baby. Now Andrew is very, very upset because he said to Joe, okay, don't worry, I'm there, nothing will happen. And everyone is so excited that they're having a baby after 20 years. Okay, so now Andrew is very upset. But after putting all his efforts, after learning, after doing everything he learned in the medical college, he is able to put life in the baby, and now the baby becomes alive. Okay, this is the story of birth, the chapter. Nice, easy. Any doubt up till now?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let's read the chapter now. Yeah, who wants to read?
Ma'am, may I?
Ma'am, may I?
Okay, one by one. I guess Bhavya said first. Okay, Bhavya, read from here.
Ma'am, in this excerpt, though it was nearly midnight when Andrew reached.
From here, Bhavya, from here. In this excerpt from,
Okay, ma'am, may I read later? Actually, I have urgent piece of work. Sorry.
okay, Aryan, you read from here in this
Okay,
excerpt.
ma'am. In this excerpt from the Citadel, Andrew Mason, newly out of medical school, has just begun his medical practice as an assistant to Dr. Edward Page in the small Welsh-meaning town of Bladenelly, as he is returning from a disappointing evening with Christine, the girl he loves. He is met by Joe Morgan. Joe and his wife, who have been married nearly 20 years, are expecting their first child.
Continue.
Though it was nearly midnight when Andrew reached Byron Gore, he found Joe Morgan waiting for him, walking up and down the short steps between the closed surgery and the entrance to the house. At the sight of him, the burly driller's face expressed relief. Doctor, I'm glad to see you. I've been back and forward here this last hour. The Miss Us wants ye before time too.
Okay, that's it. Now what happens now? As I said that it is an excerpt from the Citadel. Okay, Andrew Manson, he is someone who has just come out of medical school. He is an assistant to Dr. Edward Page in the small Welsh. Welsh is in UK. Okay, so we know the setting is of UK, United Kingdom. Okay, mining town of Blaney. Okay, now he's returning from a disappointing evening. As I said, that he had just had a fight with Christine, his girlfriend. Okay, he meets Joe Morgan. Joe and his wife, after 20 years, they are expecting their first child. Okay, now it was nearly midnight. Okay, Andrew reached Brian Gower. Brian Gower is the apartment where Andrew is currently living. Okay, so Andrew sees that Joe is waiting for him just outside his apartment, and he looks very tensed. Okay, he is just walking up and down the steps. Okay, so now when you are anxious of something, okay, when you have this anxiety or when you're anxious of something, you can't stay at one place. Okay, if you are anxious, I can't just tell you to, just stay calm and just sit. You can't do that. When someone is anxious, that person is just going here and there, speaking a lot and just, talking and moving here and there. Same way, Joe was also very stressed. Okay, he was very stressed. So he was waiting for the doctor, and he says to doctor that I'm glad to see you. The missus wants you. Ye is you. Okay, and before time, because the delivery was going to happen before time. It was a premature baby. Okay. Now who wants to read?
Ma'am, may I?
Okay, from here, Andrew.
Andrew abruptly recalled from the contemplation of his own affairs, told Morgan to wait. He went into the house for his bag. Then together they set out for number 12 Blaine Terrace. The night air was cool and deep with quiet mystery. Usually so pers- usually so perceptive, Andrew now felt dull and listless. He had no premonition that this night call would prove unusual, still less that it would influence his whole future in Blaney. The two men walked in silence until they reached the door of number 12. Then Joe drew up short. "I'll not come in," he said, and his voice showed signs of strain. "But man, I know you'll do well for us."
Okay, now that's it. Now Andrew goes to Joe's house with Joe. Okay. Andrew recalled from the contemplation of his own affairs. Now, what do you mean by contemplation of his own affairs? His own affairs, we know that he just had a fight with Christine. Contemplation because he was so occupied with all of those thoughts. Okay. He told Morgan to wait and they went to number 12 Blainer Terrace. This is where Joe and his wife stays. Okay. Now, usually so perceptive, Andrew now felt dull and listless. Okay. Usually so perceptive means that usually Andrew is very focused. Okay. He's very focused. He's very concentrated on his work. But right now, he felt very dull. Okay, he had no premonition. Premonition is when you know what's going to happen. Okay, so he didn't know that what this night is going to turn into. Then they reached to the Joe. Then they reached to Joe's place, and Joe said, I'll not come in. You go in." Joe decided to stay out of his own house, and Joe says that, you go in, and I know that you will do well for us. So just see how much Joe trusts Andrew. Okay, how much Joe trusts the doctor that everything will turn out fine. Okay, any doubt in this page? Anyone, any doubt? Okay. Okay, now who wants to read? Who wants to read now?
Ma'am, may I?
Yes,
Ma'am.
from here, inside.
Inside, a narrow stair led up to a small bedroom, clean but poorly furnished and lit only by an oil lamp. Here, Mrs. Morgan's mother, a tall, grey haired woman of nearly 70, and the stout, elderly midwife waited beside the patient, watching Andrew's expression as he moved about the room. "Let me make you a cup of tea, Dr. Badge," said the former quickly after a few moments. Andrew smiled faintly. He saw that the old woman, wise and experienced, realized there must be a period of waiting that. She was afraid he would leave the case, saying he would return later. Don't fret, mother, I'll not run away. Down in the kitchen, he drank the tea which she gave him. Overwrought as he was, he knew he could not snatch even an hour's sleep if he went home. He knew too that the case here would demand all his attention. A queer lethargy of spirit came upon him. He decided to remain until everything was over. An hour later, he went upstairs again, noted the progress made, came down once more, sat by the kitchen fire. It was still, except for the rustle. I was reading through the screen.
Yeah, sorry.
Just a second, let me buckle.
Here,
It is.
except for the Russell, here.
Except for the rustle of a cinder in the grate and the slow tick tock of the wall clock. No, there was another sound, the beat of Morgan's footstep as he paced in the street outside. The old woman opposite him sat in her black dress, quite motionless, her eyes strangely alive and wise, probing, never leaving his face.
Okay, that's it. That's it. Just give me a minute. I'm getting a call from school. Just a second. Okay, yeah, sorry. So what has happened that now when Andrew reaches the place, he sees there are two women there. First of all, Mrs. Morgan's wife, that is Susan's wife, Susan's mother, Mrs. Morgan's mother. Okay, Susan's mother, and another woman is the midwife. Okay, so they both are there just sitting beside the patient. Okay. Now Andrew says, it's gonna be time. It's just not gonna happen right now. The birth is gonna take some time. Okay. Andrew says, I'll just go and here, just move here and there. So the mother is very worried. The mother says, you will leave us and all of that. So Andrew says, don't worry, I'll not run away, I'll not go anywhere. Okay. So now he wants to go home. Okay, and you know that it's going to take 1 hour, 2 hour till the delivery starts taking place. But right now he wants to go home. But he realizes that even though he's very tired, he won't be able to sleep. Okay, because this is a severe case. This is a very serious case, and this case demands all his attention. So he decides to just stay there until everything is over. Okay, now what happens is that when he is there, an hour later he went upstairs, noted the progress made, came down. So now he's just relaxing there. He's just thinking of all the noises in his surrounding. For example, the tick tock of the wall clock and the sound of Morgan's footsteps. Okay. And see again, Joe Morgan is outside of the house, but he's very worried. He's just moving here and there so he can listen to the footsteps of Morgan. Okay. Okay. Continue from here. Who wants to read now?
Ma'am, may I?
Okay, from here. His thoughts.
His thoughts were heavily muddled. The episode he had witnessed at Cardiff Station still obsessed him morbidly. He thought of Bramwell, foolishly devoted to a woman who deceived him sordidly. of Edward Page, bound to the shrewish Blodwen of Denny, living unhappily, apart from his wife. His reason told him that all these marriages were dismal failures. It was a conclusion which, in his present state, made him wince. He wished to consider marriage as an idyllic state. Yes, he could not otherwise consider it with the image of Christine before him. Her eyes, shining towards him, admitted no other conclusion. It was the conflict between his level, doubting mind and his overflowing heart which left him resentful and confused.
Continue.
Ma'am, I lost the line.
Here, he let his chin.
He
Here.
let his chin sink upon his chest, stretched out his legs, stared broodingly into the fire. He remained like this so long, and his thoughts were so filled with Christine, that he started when the old woman opposite suddenly addressed him. Her meditation had pursued a different course.
Continue.
Susan said not to give her the chloroform of it would harm the baby. She's awful set upon this child. Dr. Batch, her
Yes.
old eyes warmed, Batch, her old eyes warmed at a sudden thought. She added in a low tone, we all are, I fancy. He collected himself with an effort. It won't do any harm, the anesthetic, he said kindly. They'll be all right. Here the nurse's voice was heard calling from the top landing. Andrew glanced at the clock, which now showed 3:30. He rose and went up to the bathroom. He perceived that he might now begin his work.
Okay, next.
Here,
So, an hour elapsed. Read this also.
here the nurse's voice was calling from. Sorry, ma'am. An hour elapsed. It was a long, hard struggle. Then, as the first streaks of dawn strayed past the broken edges of the blind, the child was born lifeless.
Okay, that's it. Okay, now what happened? That now Andrew's thoughts were all heavy, muddled. He was occupied with a lot of thoughts. Okay, and now he was already occupied with so many thoughts. Now he started thinking of all the failed marriages that he had witnessed. Okay, so for example, the failed marriage of Edward Page. Who was Edward Page? If anyone is listening very carefully, who was Edward Page?
Ma'am, I guess Andrew Senior.
Yes, yes, Andrew is the assistant of Edward Page currently. Okay, so now he's thinking of his failed marriage also. Okay, so he thinks, I'm not gonna get married anytime, or I consider marriage a very idyllic state, very like for fools and all. So he doesn't consider marriage at all. Okay, okay, he could not otherwise consider it with the image of Christine before him. So right now, when he was with the fight with Christine, he could not imagine marriage with Christine as well. Okay, so now he was thinking of Christine, of the fight and everything, and suddenly the woman opposite him, the midwife, called him. Okay, so now the midwife told Dr. Bach is basically um, it is, I guess, Irish or Welsh. It is some word. Back is said for a very dear person. So when we say, "Na, come here, dear," something like that. So it's like way of greeting someone. Okay. So the woman says that Susan already told me that she doesn't want any kind of anesthesia. At that point of time, chloroform was given as an anesthesia. Okay. So Susan had already told the midwife that she doesn't want any kind of anesthesia. Okay. Because she was scared that it would harm the baby. Okay. But doctor reassured that, you know, anesthesia won't do any kind of harm. So now the delivery started, and it took an hour or so for the delivery of the baby. But
Tough.
finally, the baby was born. However, the problem was that the baby was born lifeless. Clear? Okay. Now, who wants to read? Manav, will you read from here?
Yeah, okay, ma'am, I'll read.
Yeah.
Uh, as he gazed at the still form, a shiver of horror passed over Andrew. After all he had promised, after all that he had promised, his face, heated with his own exertions, chilled suddenly. He hesitated, torn between his desire to attempt to resuscitate the child and his obligation towards the mother, who was herself in a desperate state. The dilemma was so urgent he did not solve it consciously. Blindly, instinctively, he gave the child to the nurse and turned his attention to Susan Morgan, who now lay collapsed, almost pulseless, and not yet out of the other, upon her side. His haste was desperate, a frantic race against her ebbing strength. It took him only an instant to smash a glass ampule and inject the medicine. Then he flung down the hypodermic syringe and worked unsparingly to restore the flaccid woman. After a few minutes of feverish efforts, her heart strengthened, and he saw that he might safely leave her. He swung round in his shirt sleeves with his hair sticking to his damp brow. "Where's the child?" The midwife made a frightened gesture. She had placed it beneath the bed. In a flash, Andrew knelt down. Fishing amongst the sodden newspapers below the bed, he pulled out the child. A boy, perfectly formed. The limp, warm body was white and soft as tallow. The cord, hastily slashed, lay like a broken stem. The skin was of lovely texture, smooth and tender. The head lolled on the thin neck, the limbs seemed boneless.
Okay, now that's it. So now what happened? Now we have also seen this in movies and all. We have seen this that sometimes the doctor has this choice during the birth of a baby. The doctor faces a very bad choice or very serious choice that whether the doctor can save the baby or the mother. Okay, and usually there is no moral this thing behind this. It is just a very subconscious thought that the doctor runs towards the mother first. It just happens. Okay, same thing Andrew also faced. Andrew faces this with this choice that he either he goes and see the baby who was born lifeless, or he goes to the mother who was now lying unconscious. Okay, she had collapsed. Okay, so Andrew just rushed. He didn't think anything. He just rushed towards Susan. Okay, Susan was lying collapsed, almost pulseless. Okay, so he went to Susan. Now, when he went to Susan, he put all his efforts. He just gave her a medicine. Okay, he injected her with something, and finally, woman Susan started breathing again. Okay, after making sure that Susan is fine now, he went back to the child he had given to the midwife. He went back. He asked, where's the child? The midwife made a frightened gesture. She was also very scared because the child was not breathing, he was not crying, anything. So Andrew took the child. He saw that the child was perfectly formed. Okay, it was a baby and everything seemed perfect. But the limbs were boneless because the baby was not moving, right? The legs were not moving, the arms were not moving. So it seemed very boneless, lifeless baby. Okay. Right now, I just want to ask a few things. Just tell me this first of all, that who was Andrew Mason? Who was Andrew Mason? Raise your hands.
May I?
Yeah.
Ma'am, Andrew Manson was the assistant of Dr. Edward Page,
Very
and
good.
who had a fight with his girlfriend named Kristen in the evening, and he had returned to his apartment. Brian Gower exhausted.
Okay, very good. Now, why did raise your hands, one who wants to answer? Why did Joe come to meet Andrew? Wait, wait, wait. Yes, Vanshika.
Ma'am, Joe came to Andrew because he saw that the condition of Susan is critical, so midwife can't handle it and he needs a doctor to deliver the baby.
He needs a doctor to attend the wife. Very good. Now, who was present with Susan? Raise your hands. Who was present in the room with
Ma'am,
Susan?
may I?
Wait, wait, wait. I want everyone to answer. Kanak, do you know the answer to this?
No.
Okay. Yes, Adi. Okay, just a second. Okay, Akansha, you were saying. Akansha, you were saying something? Okay, Aryan, answer.
With the Susan Morgan, ma'am, Andrew Mason was present, and the midwife was present.
Okay, and there was another person,
Yes, ma'am.
And her
Morgan, Susan Morgan's
Susan's
mother.
mother, ma'am. Susan's mother also.
Susan's mother also. Yes. Now, after everything, what after the birth of the baby, what was the choice that Andrew was faced with? Raise your hands. What was the choice that Andrew was faced with? Ashwarya,
Ma'am, either to save the mother or the child.
or to attend to the baby? Okay. And he went to the mother. Okay. So, yeah, if you can continue. There's no doubt up till now, I believe.
No, ma'am.
Okay, now who wants to read? Arav, will you read from here? Still kneeling? Andrew down. Asphyxia. Asphyxia pallida. Samaritan. Okay, that's it. Now, Andrew finally held the baby and he saw that the baby was very white and very pale. So, when there is a person who is dead, uh, the person becomes very pale, very white. There is no blood in the body, right? So, there's no blood flowing in the body. So, the person becomes very pale and very white. So, this baby was also has become very pale. Okay. Now, Andrew knew that he was suffering from asphyxia pallida. Now, what is asphyxia pallida? Asphyxia pallida is a case of suffocation. First of all, asphyxia is suffocation. So now what happens is that in a body, okay, when the blood is filled with more carbon dioxide and the levels of oxygen is decreased, okay, so less of oxygen and more of carbon dioxide in the blood, so that suffocates the person. And that was the reason why the baby was born dead, because in his body there was more of carbon dioxide. Okay, so now Andrew suddenly realized that he has seen the same case in Samaritan as well. Okay, he has seen the same case in Samaritan. Okay, where a particular treatment was used and the person was fine. Okay, so instantly he started doing the same thing. So he called out for the nurse. Nurse is the midwife here. So he called out for her. He told her to bring the basin. Basin is that a big thing. Okay, he told her to bring the basin, hot water and ice water. In one basin, he kept ice water, and in another basin, he mixed the hot and icy water. Okay, so that it doesn't become too hot. Okay, so one basin was of iced water, cold water, and one basin was of cold and hot mix. Okay, so what did he do? He put the baby into first ice water and then the hot water and then the ice water. So he did this procedure. Okay, he's like a crazy juggler. What does a juggler do? Juggles the balls, right? So Andrew also juggled the baby first into the cold water and then into the mixed water. He did this thing, but again, there was no sign of breath in the baby. Okay, no breath came from the lax body of this lax is dead body of the child, and he was getting very exhausted also, Andrew. Okay, so we'll retell here. Is there any
What
doubt?
is
What is
Samaritan?
Samaritan? Is a place. Samaritan is a place here. Okay, Samaritan is basically a place, or Samaritan is also called as a church where people do these helpful things to all of that. So let's just take it as a place that he witnessed a case there, the same case there. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
okay. So we'll continue tomorrow, and it's a very small chapter, just one and a half page left. We'll probably finish the chapter tomorrow itself. Okay, I would recommend
Excuse me,
please.
ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, what will be the pattern of term 2 English exam?
So I have shared the syllabus, right? So please see the syllabus once. There is marking
Ma'am,
scheme.
pattern, format.
It will be subjective. First of all, it will be subjective and objective also. Objective like MCQ can come, or just like how we did in TT, right? So there was subjective,
Yes, ma'am.
but with one markers also in grammar. Okay. So most probably it will be the same format, but I can assure you that it will be a subjective paper. Okay, and second of all, if you see the syllabus, there are marks allotted to everything. Like for the note making, you have 5 marks, I believe. Yeah, 5 marks for note making. Unseen passage is for 8 marks. So one unseen passage is different, one note making unseen passage is different, so two unseen passages will be there. Okay, so just go through the syllabus once, everyone, please. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, I'm taking the attendance.
Ma'am,
Akansha, yes.
will there be any question of 5 marks value based something?
So long, if it's a subjective paper, so long question will be there. One or two long question will be there. Just like PT. Okay, just like PT2. Okay. Akansha,
Present, ma'am.
Arav, Arav Sharma, Agnish,
Present, ma'am.
Aishwarya,
Present, ma'am.
Akshita,
Present, ma'am.
Aman,
Present, ma'am.
Anshika, Arumita,
Present, ma'am.
Aryan,
Present, ma'am.
Ayush,
Present, ma'am.
Bhavya Bhadwaj,
Present, ma'am.
Bhavya Mishra,
Present, ma'am.
Daman, Devansh, Dishita,
Present, ma'am.
Galaxy, Gautam Kakkar,
Present, ma'am.
Gautam Kumar,
Present, ma'am.
Himanshu, Jayant,
Present, ma'am.
Kanak,
Present, ma'am.
Kanha, Kunjal,
Present, ma'am.
Lakshay, Linoy, Manav,
Present, ma'am.
Pragya, Rishabh, Rohan,
Ma'am, present.
Sahil Bisht,
Present, ma'am.
Sahil Sharma, Sanket,
Present, ma'am.
Sayam, Shashwat,
Present, ma'am.
Shivansh,
Present, ma'am.
Shriya,
Present, ma'am.
Siddhant,
Present, ma'am.
Siddharth Jain, Siddharth Semwal,
Present, ma'am.
Shrishti, Vani,
Present, ma'am.
Vanshika.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, I'll see you all tomorrow now. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
okay, bye.